Joining us now to discuss BTC price and the Fed's latest move and how Bitcoin is responding is the Wolf of Wall Street's crypto trader and investor Scott Melker, and with StockCharts.com senior technical analyst Julius de Kempenaer. All right. Welcome, Scott and Julius. Thanks for joining us. So the Federal Reserve is raising the short-term borrowing rate by 75 basis points to a target range of 3.75% to 4%, the highest level since January 2008. Now, it's not unexpected, but we're watching for hints on what the Fed may do next. And Powell said the central bank may slow the rate of increases as soon as the next meeting or the one after. So, Scott, let's start with you and your reaction.
I think this is exactly what we expected from the Fed, and I think that probably what's priced in now was the 75 today, maybe 50 next month, and then decreasing to 25 and 25 and perhaps halting. But I think that a lot of people are viewing this as an opportunity for a Fed pivot back to easy money and quantitative easing, and I really don't think that's what's going to happen. I think what we'll see from the pivot is a slowing of this tightening, but not a return to that easy money market that we've had in the past. I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon. So people who are expecting that might be wildly disappointed.
All right, Julius, what caught your attention? What do you think this slowing means?
Well, it's always interesting because I'm coming from a technical background, and these kind of fundamental macro news messages. Personally, I always find it interesting to see how the market responds to that. I don't have a real opinion on how the Fed should act. I'm going to have the market tell me that with their response. And today is a very good example because, you see Bitcoin making in an hourly chart, almost $500 between the high and the low. And at the end of the day, we're back to square one. And I'm also looking at the stock market, and there you see an initial response where the market moves up. And right now, we're just kind of at the same level or lower than where we started the day. So all in all, that whole hype around this rate hike has not led to any, let's call it, significant or major turnaround in the markets, nor in stock markets, nor for Bitcoin. And I'd like to take a step back and take a look at how that pattern is evolving, because I've rarely seen this kind of macro events, this kind of macro announcements cause a V-shaped bottom or a real major turnaround in the markets. Markets usually do what they want to do, and they continue to do that.
So maybe, Julius, you can go into that. I mean, why did we see this kind of, is it a dead cat bounce? I mean, this momentary spike in Bitcoin. I do see that the stock markets are up still. So what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, if I look at the Bitcoin chart, my longer-term view for Bitcoin is that 18,000 is a very important level. We're hovering above that level for quite a while now. And from a technical point of view, the longer a level remains intact, and in this case it's 18,000, or I'd like to speak about the range because it's never exactly 18,000, the more important it becomes. For the time being, you gotta go with the flow and say that, at every time at that 18,000 level, buyers stepped in and pushed the price higher. So that's a positive sign. Personally, I think if I look at the Bitcoin chart, and especially the weekly chart with the RSI, a technical indicator that's showing a very nice positive divergence, I think that the next move for Bitcoin will be to the top of its longer-term range, which is around 25,000. From a trading perspective, 18,000 is your stop loss. It's a pretty hard stop loss. If we go significantly below 18,000, I think the way opens up for a pretty serious decline towards 12.5. So for a trader, you got pretty good opportunities. You're relatively close to a very strong support level that is getting stronger by the day, opening up to at least 25K. If you go above 25, then hey, we're all the way up. We're back in the uptrend. Mm-hmm. If it goes wrong, 18,000 is your hard stop, and you need to get out. So from a profit to loss ratio, that's a pretty good deal.
Scott, if the Fed says that they're going to slow rate increases, I would think that this is a bullish signal. So what do you see happening with the crypto markets, with Bitcoin in the short term?
Well, I think that the crypto winter ended in June, and I think that we likely bottomed or began the bottoming process when price dropped to 17,500. A lot of my levels align with exactly what he just said before. But I think that crypto has largely decorrelated from the stock market, and that's strange to say because it's trading sideways. But if you're trading sideways while the yen and the euro and the pound and stocks are on fire, we're seeing Amazon make 15% moves, Meta make 20 and 30% moves overnight, and Bitcoin is just casually trading sideways at 19,000. I think that's actually an extremely good sign. I really do believe that we're bottoming, and I believe that it's very clear, especially looking at today, that Bitcoin is barely reacting now to these macro news, to the interest rate hikes, to the Fed's posturing. I think it's becoming less relevant. We're going back to becoming a decorrelated, beautifully idiosyncratic asset, which is what Bitcoin has always been in the past. So I expect more upside.
That's interesting. So you don't think that the Fed is now really impacting Bitcoin at all. And so yet with Bitcoin, we've been seeing very low volatility and, some analysts predicting that eventually we're going to see some sort of a breakout. When and where would we see that happening in terms of toward the upside or downside?
Well, I think we made a nice move from about 19,200 up to 21,000, which broke some key patterns and was a move to the upside, which aligns with his idea that we'll head up to 25,000. For me, the bear market doesn't end unless we break above 32,000 because that's the last real lower high that we had and would signal a break of that bearish structure. But it's a fool's errand to pull out your crystal ball and try to predict when it's going to happen. And it's sort of like saying it's sunny now, it will rain eventually, right? I mean, we all know that that's eventually going to happen when you have reduced volatility. There will be a time when volume steps up and volatility returns. This is, after all, the crypto market. I can't tell you exactly a prediction, but I do expect it or anticipate, hopefully, that it would be to the upside.
Julius, what do you say to this low volatility in the volumes in Bitcoin? When might we see more buyers rather than sellers?
I mean, the low volatility in Bitcoin is quite interesting, actually, and I agree with what Scott just said. I mean, we've seen bigger moves in the stock market, which is quite unusual, and he's completely right about the decorrelation between Bitcoin and stocks, and hopefully that will continue because that will give us an additional decorrelated asset class for investors to invest in. I still see Bitcoin as quite risky from a longer term perspective. These moves are quite substantial, so I wouldn't use it as a value store, like people like to call it, or put like all your savings into it. But nevertheless, it gives a good decorrelation, and if you're looking for areas in the market where you can put your money, then crypto assets, not only Bitcoin, are definitely on the list. And that 30K level is definitely in play. That's a very important level. After 25, the upside is about towards 30K, and we'll need to see it. But when we break 25, we have a very nice double bottom in place, and that looks good for Bitcoin.
Scott, what's the strategy with Bitcoin when we see such low volatility? Is it even worth it?
Yeah, it depends on your view. If you're a degenerate scalper and you're trying to play the 5-minute chart, then it's exceptionally boring. But if you're a long-term investor and believe in the asset and believe that markets are generally bottoming, the Fed will pivot, whatever your narrative is, then you should be dollar cost averaging and buying this range because your long-term upside wildly outweighs the downside from here. Even if we make the move he's talking about to 14, 12, 10, we all know it'll be back above 20 not too far down the road, and that this will still be the good buying opportunity. So I really think that this is a great opportunity to slowly accumulate the asset before it inevitably goes up. Listen, we look at March 2020. I talk about this all the time. Bitcoin bottomed just under $4,000. The stock market bottomed 12 or 13 days after. Stock market doubled and everybody lauded this incredible move in stocks, while Bitcoin casually went up 17 times from 3,800 to 69,000, right? So if you believe that a bottom's coming, a Fed pivot, what asset class do you want to be riding on the way up? For me, it's definitely Bitcoin in the crypto market.
All right. Julius, are you in agreement that you feel that Bitcoin has decoupled from the stock market, from anything macro and the Fed have influence over? And if so, where do you see Bitcoin, say, at the end of the year?
Ooh, there's a lot of questions. Well, certainly, I mean, today is a good example. Today is a good example of decoupling, or at least from macroeconomic. And quite frankly, I mean, if you think about it, the Fed's all about rates. We're having a rate hike. You don't get interest. Bitcoin doesn't pay interest. There's no interest rate on Bitcoin. I mean, there's an interest rate on the US dollar. I'm from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. We have the euro. There's an interest rate on the euro. My mortgage is calculated in euros, and I need to pay a percentage in interest. In Bitcoin, there's no such thing. So I'm not a hardcore economist, but I have a hard time understanding how Bitcoin would be kind of related to interest rate decisions by the Fed, and it looks like the market is agreeing with me, because they made a wild move and everybody was shaken out, and we're now back to square one, and the market is just going to do what it's been doing and hammering out that bottom around 18,000 in this range and going higher. With regard to the stock market, I do believe that we're going to see more uncorrelated moves, because my view on the stock market is not as positive as for Bitcoin. So it could very well be that we will see investors moving out of the stock market into crypto as an alternative.
Scott, forecast for Bitcoin by the end of the year?
Oh, there's nothing more embarrassing than being asked to make a forecast, because there's a 99% chance you'll be wrong. But I would put it somewhere between 25 and 30 if I had to guess. We generally see on a rolling basis, October, November, December to be the best period for basically trading every single asset. Santa Claus rally, the midterm election season, the Fed potentially now pausing or reducing the amount of the rate hikes. I think there's a lot of things that could at least give us a nice bounce, even if it's a dead cat bounce or a bull trap, where we'll see most assets rising through the end of the year, specifically Bitcoin. So if I had to guess, I would say between those areas, but please don't hold me to it, because nothing would surprise me.